Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and blasttheradio.com, this is The Lowell Green Show. The number to call and be heard around the world is 613-413-2217. Or email Lowell at blasttheradio.com. And now, here is Lowell Green.
John, question for my viewers, listeners. In your opinion, did Debbie Jaudoin do the right thing when she blew the whistle on Patrick Brown? Now, I'm going to tell you, more than a few people are pretty upset at this. If you follow Twitter, you'll see some pretty nasty stuff there directed at Debbie Jaudoin. Obviously, some of Patrick Brown's supporters are not very nice people. Okay, they're mad. Now, I've got to point out a couple of things before we go further here. I've got to be honest. I have known Debbie Jaudoin for many, many years. In fact, I've known her since my CFRA days. She was a fairly frequent caller, et cetera, et cetera. I've met her more than once. So I just want to get that out of the way. She's worked during election campaigns for a number of conservatives over the years. Secondly, until now, Debbie Jaudoin has been a very staunch Patrick Brown supporter. This is important to remember. In fact, Debbie Jaudoin was one of the few leading conservatives who spoke out against the manner in which Patrick Brown was treated when he was dumped as provincial leader of the PC party. She was hot. In fact, I have on Facebook a couple of emails that she sent, or posts, or whatever you call it, during which she urged people. In fact, even before the controversy, she urged people to support Patrick Brown in his leadership campaign. So the point I'm trying to make here is that she's not some nasty person who did this out of spite. She was a staunch Patrick Brown supporter. She was very upset and said so when he was dumped as leader. But as a campaign worker, more recently for Patrick Brown, Debbie Jaudoin obviously spotted something that she believed was breaking the rules that are established by Elections Canada. So this is important to understand. We're not talking rules here set down by the Conservative Party or the PC Party. We're talking about rules, the law, actually. It's the law determined by Elections Canada. So she blows the whistle, and you know what happened. Now, some people say that she threw a friend under the bus. But the fact is, this is the fact, whether you agree with what she did or not, that had she not done this, and had Patrick Brown been elected leader of the Conservative Party and gone into an election campaign against Trudeau, you can be damn sure, if he had broken Canada Elections Act laws, that this would come to the fore. Sooner or later, somebody would have dug this out. And you can imagine the disaster that would befall the Conservative Party. Just if you would cast your mind back a few years, 2008, as a matter of fact, when a conservative member of parliament named Dean Del Mastro from Peterborough was convicted of breaking Canada election rules. His crime was that he spent some of his own money, not taxpayers' money, didn't defraud anybody, but he spent some of his own money in the campaign, more than he should have. And this was against Canada election rules. And what happened to Dean Del Mastro? He was led off in chains to jail. Remember that? Chained in front and leg chains. That's what happened to the last conservative that broke Canada elections laws. He was led off in chains. Please keep that in mind when you're assessing whether she did the right thing or not. Can you imagine? Patrick Brown is elected leader of the Conservative Party. He's in an election campaign. Looks like he's holding his own or doing quite well against Trudeau. Suddenly, the news comes out This man broke Canada Elections Act. Would he be hauled off in chains? Well, Dean DeMastro was. And you imagine what would happen to the Conservatives if their leader was hauled off to jail in chains? I'm not exaggerating, folks. I'm not making this up. If you don't believe me, just Google Dean DelMastro. I'm telling you, that's the last Conservative that broke Canada election rules, law, actually. So, and his crime was that he spent more of his own money than he should have. For this, he's hauled off to jail, and so that's how serious this is. What's your feeling? Did she do the right thing, or as some believe, did she throw a friend under the bus? And I guess another question relative to this is, what do you think this does to the Conservative leadership campaign? What do you think this? We have a call coming in from BC. Do we?
We do. Cleve, we're on live with Lowell Green. Go ahead, Cleve.
Hey, Lowell. It's
Yes,
great
sir.
to hear you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I lived in Ottawa for 40 years. I left about 14 years ago. I thought you were long gone. And
I'm not long gone.
I'm
long here. I'm not long gone. I'm long here, sir.
No,
What do you think? What do you think? Did she do the right thing?
Well, all you have to do, Lowell, is look what happened with the trucking convoy that started right here in BC, which is what I more or less had a comment on. They got to Ottawa and treated like terrorists. So it doesn't surprise me anything that these liberals that are up to, they'll just throw you in jail if you don't.
No, but that's not what we're talking about here. Did in your opinion, did Debbie Jodouin do the right thing in blowing the whistle, which ended up in Patrick Brown being disqualified in the leadership race? Do you think she did the right thing, or did she throw a friend under the bus?
It's hard. I don't really know a lot about that story, but I've heard a little bit about it. A lot of people seem to support him. I like Pierre Poilievre myself, but I don't really know the story on that guy. But like throwing anybody under the bus over was his election thing. Was it a really big deal that he broke some rules?
Sir, if you don't know the story, like could you do yourself a favor? Just Google Patrick Brown resignation, and you'll see the.
Yeah,
whole
I
story.
will. And Lowell, I was just excited to find you still on the line here doing your thing, and it's great to hear from you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for calling. I have another question here. John, are we getting any response on this at all?
Yes, we are, sir. And by
It's
the way,
amazing. It's always amazing to me that a major story like this, that there's still people out there who, I don't know, like if they're living on the moon. Well, I guess if you live in BC, it's next to living on the moon. Okay.
it's living in paradise, that's for sure.
I have another question here.
Okay.
But I'd still like to have comments on that first one. I think that's important.
And we do have some, so whenever you're ready.
Good. Another question. Does anybody out there, do any of you people have any idea how we can stop this liberal government from now attacking Canadian farmers? They attacked Western oil workers. They've attacked miners, pipeline workers, etc., driven hundreds of thousands of people out of jobs. Now they're attacking Canadian farmers. Trudeau is introducing a bill which would reduce the amount of fertilizer that farmers would be allowed to apply to crops, lower it by 30%. Folks, I have a good deal of experience in agriculture, a graduate of McDonald Agricultural College. I also know a number of farmers. I grew up on the farm. I can tell you that if farmers have to reduce their fertilizer by 30%, this is a disaster. If you reduce fertilizer by 30%, essentially, you are reducing your crops by at least 30%, perhaps more than that. And the farmers, I mean, they just can't believe this. And there's another consideration here. It's one more illustration of how when you have people who have no idea. I mean, I think what the Minister of Agriculture is a former travel agent. It probably wouldn't be able to recognize a bull from a cow, okay? Probably thinks that, who the hell knows what she thinks. But the fact of the matter is that I had a farmer call me the other day about this, say, Lowell, do you think we are using any more fertilizer than we absolutely have to? The cost of fertilizer in the past 2 years has almost quadrupled. Believe me, we do not use 1 ounce more of fertilizer than we absolutely need as a bare minimum on our crops. And now this government, which knows nothing about agriculture, couldn't tell a bull from a cow, or words to that effect. They're telling us that we've got to reduce fertilizer by 30%. Folks, the result of this would be far less food. I mean, we're talking crops, not just wheat and oats and barley. We're talking food too. We're talking celery, tomatoes. That if you have to reduce fertilizer 30%, in all probability, you're looking at a reduction of food crops by at least 30%. What do you think that would do to the cost of food? Is food not high enough for you now? But this, and actually, Brian Lilly infers this in a column today in the Sun. It's like it just seems that Trudeau doesn't care anything about people, about jobs, about anything except the environment, the green energy. That's all he seems concerned about. And now they're trying essentially the same thing in Holland, reducing fertilizer there, trying to, and it's resulted in a huge rebellion by Dutch farmers, blocking roads and everything else. But what's the matter with this, man? What's the matter with this bloody party? I mean, there's not only that. As more than one farmer has said to me, why are they picking on us farmers? We're not causing the pollution. But look at the cities. The pollution's coming from you guys in the city making rules for us. You guys in the city who are polluting the atmosphere are making rules that claim that we're the responsible. We're not responsible. Anybody, any ideas what? I mean, I don't, you know what? I just thrown up my hands with this guy. They're going to destroy the country. I mean, we're headed for what appears to be a recession now. He's still going to go ahead with carbon tax, and it delayed one of the carbon taxes. But, I mean, going to reduce food production by 30%? For what? John, what do we got?
In a country that already has such a short growing season, that is astonishing.
Unbelievable.
You want to go to the food? Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, and I mean, this is what happens when you have people who don't know anything. I mean, come on, they can't run a passport office, they can't run security or customs in the airports. It's just the country is in a chaos, and now they're going to start attacking farmers. Go ahead, John. What do we got?
But they can ban Canadian flags on Parliament Hill on Canada Day. They got that done.
Oh God.
So you want to start with the farmer question or the Patrick Brown question?
Whatever we got.
Okay. All right. Sonia says hungry people are easier to control. That is all that Trudeau cares about. Let's go to the top of the page. Donald says, yes, absolutely. Joe did the right thing. Kathy says, yes, she did the right thing. If it were Pierre or Leslin or Rowan doing what Patrick Brown did, media and others would expect them to be removed. Joshua says she didn't do the right thing. She did the only thing. Whether you like someone or support someone or not is irrelevant. Impropriety is impropriety and should be exposed and dealt with.
But you know, I have to tell you, do you ever check Twitter, John?
Yes, a lot.
There are some terrible things being said about Debbie Jodwa on Twitter. Some people some of the things being said are threatening.
Twitter's an awful, awful place. There's very little positive on Twitter.
Well, it's an awful place because there are awful people there. I don't understand. I mean, even in Facebook, I had a number of people mad as hell at me. She threw her friend under the bus, etc. And so I keep asking these people, so you think that the people who break the law should be allowed to do so? You wouldn't do anything if you saw someone breaking the law? I mean, I like what's happening to my country? What's happening to people? How can you possibly threaten somebody because they turned in somebody who's breaking the law? If sooner or later this would have come out. If in fact he is breaking Canada election laws, this would have come out. Sooner or later it would come out, and it would destroy. If he were leader, it would destroy the Conservative Party for years. Go ahead, John.
The text number and the phone call number is 613-413-2217. Please share this show on your social media channels as well. It's the best advertising we've got, the only advertising we've got. This person texts in to say, Lowell, this government is determined to have their own greenways, no matter how it affects Canadians. This must mean Liberals are anti-Canadian. There's also been the weird destruction of dozens of food processing plants around the world, the cause of more food shortages, says David. Debbie Jaudoin did the right thing, says Sonia, but Warren Kinsella would disagree.
Yeah, there's another thing. This what can I say about Warren Kinsella? Um, I have to be careful. This guy's very litigious. So, but I mean, he's anyway. He's not saying very nice things about Debbie Jaudoin. What does Kinsella think she should have done? What does Kinsella or anybody think she should have done? If in fact he was breaking Canada election law, and maybe people don't understand, the Canada Elections Act says that no corporation or union can contribute to an election campaign or a leadership campaign. I repeat, that is Canada elections law. No corporation, no union can contribute under any circumstances. And so if you contribute somehow or other by laundering the monies through that that is illegal. It's not breaking rules, that's breaking the law. And I repeat, the last conservative who broke Canada election laws was hauled off to jail in freaking chains. Not figuratively, literally chains. Do some of you people remember that? It was discussing. There is his family, and he's brought out in chains in front of his family. That's the way conservatives are treated when they're caught breaking the law. What do you think would have happened to Patrick Brown if he in fact was caught doing it? Go ahead, John.
Let's get to some of the other comments in a moment here. Let's get a word in for our sponsors at Shield, shall we?
Are we at that time already?
It is 17 minutes in, sir.
Was up in Pakenham a couple of days ago. Had to pick up some new feed for my birds, and driving past, I didn't get a chance to drop into Shields, say hello, but I got a great big sign just reminding people that they have a butcher shop there. And let's face it, these days, I mean, with the cost of meat, et cetera, it's very important to make sure you're getting really good value. I can assure you, if you're getting your meat, if you're going to the butcher shop at Shields, you're getting good value. Not only good value, but this is local. And by local, I mean Ottawa Valley. It's not, they're not bringing in beef from the West. And nothing wrong with that, but I'm simply saying, if you really want to shop local, you can't get more local than Shields, whether it's meat, whether it's a butcher shop, or if it's appliances. They specialize in appliances. They're one of the largest dealerships in appliances in this area. Yes, they deliver anywhere. It's down up and down the Seaway Valley, and yes, I know where that is, in through Ottawa, et cetera, et cetera. Check. All I've ever said was, hey, folks, give them a chance. If you need a new appliance or appliances, at least give them a chance. They're local. They're good people. Shields.ca. John.
Sonia says Patrick Brown has a history. He's finished politically, and good riddance, she adds.
No, but that's not the question. The question is, did Debbie Jaudoin do the right thing? She blew the whistle. Not only that, I'm proud of Debbie because she had the guts to come forward and identify herself. So this is not some secret person hiding behind the leaves, and she says, I'm the one who did this, knowing that this would bring a lot of abuse on her head. So good for her. A little bit of courage and a little bit of integrity out there. And she is getting, I'm telling you right now, she's being raked over the coals. It's pretty sad. Go ahead, John.
So her situation to me is no different than when we first got into COVID. And remember the first Christmas where we weren't supposed to have friends and family in, et cetera, and we were being told, if you see that in your neighborhood, please report it. There are huge fines. You're in as much as you don't want to do that to your neighbors, you are in a situation, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Well, I mean, maybe people just don't realize how serious this situation is. If you break Canada Elections Act, that's why I keep talking about Dean Del Mastro. That's how serious breaking Canada election rules are. And all Del Mastro did was he didn't take money from the taxpayers. There was no fraud. He just simply spent more of his own money than he should have. Went over the amount. Okay, and for this, not only did he go to jail, he's hauled off in chains in front of his family. Go ahead, please.
Yes, says Carrie, somebody blowing the whistle should be praised. Mike on Facebook, yes, she did the right thing, might have to get in big trouble if she didn't, or she would have to resign. Debbie did the right thing. It's up to Elections Canada to do their job. Mike says, no, we just read Mike's comment. Let's go to Kellyanne. Even if one of my kids were breaking the law, I would tell the truth. So to me, Debbie did the right thing. Our first comment in on Twitch, Julie says, does the current government not realize how much we need our farmers, how much our food costs are? Have you been to a grocery store? The cost of meats are insane. We are not just buying, or we are just not buying it. Think it's time to boot the government. Oh, wait, NDP and Liberals are in cahoots together.
My question is, like, what are we going to do, folks? My job here is to acquaint you as best I can in the half hour I've got of some of the things I think that should not be happening. And but this is a fact. The government wants to reduce the amount of fertilizer farmers are allowed to use by 30%. And among other things, the indication is, well, we, the government, even though our agriculture minister is a travel agent, no, travel agents are fine, but they know diddly squat about farming. But the idea that somehow or other farmers need to be told how to best, harvest their crops and plant and so forth by somebody who's never been on a farm. I mean, on top of everything else, it's terribly insulting. As the farmers said to me, hey, we're not using one, believe me, with the cost of fertilizer, we're not using 1 ounce more than we absolutely have to. And by the way, they're so sophisticated in many places now that all the amount of fertilizer put on crops is all controlled by computer. It's all computerized so that only the absolute minimum, right to the ounce, is applied. That soil is checked, that the soil is checked. What does it need? Here's what the soil needs. It needs so much nitrogen, et cetera, et cetera. This you require so much fertilizer. The computer figures it all out, and that's what happens. So it's not by random. The farmer doesn't take, shovelfuls of fertilizer and throw it around. No, he checks the soil. What does the soil need in order to properly grow crops? Here's what they need: nitrogen, this, that. This is the amount of fertilizer and the kind of fertilizer you need. That's how sophisticated it is. And we've got someone who runs a travel agent telling a farmer how to do this. I tickle my fanny. Come on. Come on. Jesus, what's the matter with these people up there? Go ahead, John.
Echoing a comment that you said earlier, Hein says, if what's happening in the Netherlands migrates to Canada, we will all be doomed. Nitrogen is not a pollutant, he says. Over to YouTube. Our first comment from YouTube. Boo Boo says, Trudeau wants electric everything, tractors, no gas-powered vehicles, etc. Has this guy gone bonkers? Will this bullshit ever end? Farmers are the source of our food.
Yeah, there's a very interesting, actually, this business about electric tractors. There was a very interesting response from a wheat farmer. Said, okay, we during harvesting season, our tractors are going 24 hours. We run them night and day, and they're out in the field. If it needs gas, then if a truck comes out and what are we supposed to do? Like when in the middle of the night we need our batteries are run out. What are we supposed to do? I mean, that's how ridiculous a great deal of this is. Go ahead, please.
Drive around with a windmill on top, I guess.
Oh, God.
The number here, 613-413-2217. We welcome your calls. We welcome your texts as well. This person says, I'm proud of Debbie Jodwine. She did what is right. How to stop the Liberal government from attacking Canadian farmers. Trudeau loves famous people. Okay. If Deborah Jodwine did not come forward, someone might have in the future. It was the right thing. If it's illegal, it's illegal. Brown is a weasel playing hockey during COVID shutdown with his buds at a public rink, costing thousands of taxpayer money to keep it open for him. Let's go to email. Lowell at blasttheradio.com. Lisa says, I think farmers should be left alone. In fact, developers building housing should be building up, not out. Okay. And says the priorities of the Trudeau government are ridiculously out of touch with how the average person is living. Maybe if he or his wife had to buy groceries for themselves or gas for their vehicles, they would have a clue. But scary thing is they don't seem to know nor care how hard things are for people now if they aren't wealthy.
Canadian Taxpayers Federation points out in the Sun today, or maybe it was yesterday, the fact that the higher the price of gasoline and diesel, the happier the Liberal government is. This is what Trudeau wants. He wants gasoline, so that's why he's applying carbon tax and this so-called clean fuel tax, and so he wants to drive up the cost of of driving a gas-powered vehicle so high that you're forced into an electric vehicle. That the higher the price of gasoline, the happier Trudeau is. And the fact that it increases the price of everything is of no concern to him, obviously. Go ahead, John.
You know what, Lowell? I dropped off a little care package to a friend of mine who was a single mom of two living in subsidized housing. How in the world is she supposed to all of a sudden come up with $50,000 or $60,000 plus an electric plug-in for her new electric car? She can't make ends meet as it is now. She's in subsidized housing. It makes no sense.
Well, as I've also pointed out, that if in fact we're going to legislate the amount of electric cars you have, we're going to have to redo the entire electrical grid of the entire country. I've pointed out before, folks, this is why our healthcare system is crumbling. All of the money, all of the energy is going into the green energy idea. And it's not just Trudeau. I keep pointing out, why are we buying electric buses in Ottawa? An electric bus costs more than twice as much as a diesel. Why? Better ride? No. More people? No. Safer? No. So apparently this is good for the environment. What we're trying to do, we now contribute 1.6% of all worldwide emissions. We're going to beggar ourselves, drive ourselves crazy, drive ourselves into poverty. Cost of everything will be escalating to a point where nobody can afford anything. And what will we do? Well, we'll reduce our emissions down to 1.3%. Go ahead, John.
Debbie's comment finally makes sense. The one about Trudeau loving famous people. Apparently on the scroll across the bottom, instead of farmers, I wrote famers. So there you go.
Oh, okay.
Well done, Deb. Well done. I'm sorry for that. I have corrected it. Let's go to Peter's comment. Trudeau's busy remaking Canada in all areas, create a disaster, then replace the problem with a Liberal agenda. If it's not broken, let Trudeau break it and then fix it, or so he thinks.
As I had a bit of a party here yesterday after you left, John.
Of course you did. And
one of my best buddies, we were talking about some of these things. And I thought that my buddy had one of the best comments. He said, we're talking about the We charity, which essentially the Trudeau family destroyed. And Paul, my buddy, said, you know what? It just seems that everything this family touches turns to shit. I can't think of a more appropriate way to put it. Go ahead, John.
Well, except shit is a fertilizer, and we'd have to cap that at 30%, Lowell. Let's go to Murray on Facebook. Look at all the farmers in Europe now. They're not going to take they are all standing. They are not going to take this. They are all standing up. Trucker convoy in Canada woke up the world. Kellyanne says driving will be a privilege for the rich. Over to Twitch.
Wait a minute. I think the driving is pretty well a privilege for the rich today, to be honest. Go ahead.
I'm ever glad I sold the boat. I don't know how people are doing that these days. Man. To Twitch. And Terry says, is there anything these liberal nitwits can screw up? First the farmers, now the military. Okay. Peter says, conservatives have ethics. Liberals should find the same ethics and call for resignations of Trudeau. Dean was held to a higher standard, of course, because, well, he's a conservative and the judge was a liberal. Let's go. Rules.
You know what? That's very true. I remember being enraged at the time. Okay, he broke the law. He's got to spend some jail time. But drag him out in chains. You know the next thing that's going to happen? We're going to see Tamara Lynch dragged out in chains somewhere. I don't think Trudeau will be happy until he sees her in chains. It's just astonishing what's happening here. Go ahead.
Just a few comments to wind down the show. We got about a minute left, so here we go. Rules are rules, says Hein. You have to play the game by the rules. Cheryl says, welcome back, Lowell. Great to see you again. And I think she did do the right thing because the Conservatives cannot afford to take risks, especially when it comes to running against Trudeau. They need to make sure that everything is on the straight and narrow.
I think that's the point I'm trying to make here. This is a Conservative leadership, okay? And Dean DeMaster, we saw what happens when Conservatives break the law. You can be damn sure that if Dean DeMaster was a Liberal, he may have spent some jail time, but he would not have been hauled out in chains. You can be damn sure. So you're right. Conservatives are held to a higher standard. Go ahead, please.
Vern says, absolutely, she did the right thing. Gregory says, blowing the whistle on Mr. Brown was the right thing to do. As per agriculture and fertilizer, the farmers will only use what is necessary. Too much would damage their crops. Stacy says, the Liberals are smoking too much weed. They don't care about this country. And finally, Mike, last word to you today. We're already in a shortage. This would be devastating.
Yeah, you're right. Devastating is the word. Thank you all. Some very good comments today. I appreciate it. We'll be back. I know I won't be back tomorrow. I've got a hospital appointment again, but I'll be back on Wednesday. Thank you, John.
The Lowell Green Show is seen and heard live around the world at 2 p.m. Eastern. Connect with us online at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Download the Lowell Green podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green podcast. This is a production of blasttheradio.com.